Next, we will have our superintendent's report. Superintendent Dixon.
Thank you, Chair Huntsman and board members. I am going to add in some shout outs to my report. So we're going to have 3 shout outs at the beginning, 1 at the end. Feel free to shout. And in the middle, holding ourselves accountable for the strategic plan and sharing with you in more detail how we engage in a stock take and kind of taking you through that process a little bit, and specifically drilling down on the goal of effective teachers and leaders. So the first shout out goes to finance. Now, I receive these quarterly reports, and they're, I guess they're in the form of an audit per se, but they let us know if we've had any exceptions in the disbursement process. And usually we're good at this. We've gotten so much better under the direction of Deputy Jones. We are mean and clean, but we often have a minor thing here or there. And this quarter we had 0 exceptions, meaning everything was done accordingly. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to the team that works on the disbursements. Shout out too, we had a state award given to Lindsey Cunningham, who's in the audience. So Lindsay, if you'll stand and wave. So Lindsay is our secondary math specialist, and Lindsay has quickly gained an amazing reputation throughout the state as being so helpful. This was part of the award she was given for the Women in Tech Awards. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's quite amazing. So it looks like Dr. Thronson is wanting to say something. Oh, I don't know why I said Cunningham. Thank you, Lindsay Henderson. Good, Dr. Thronson, thank you.
Well, you can be 2 people.
Yes. I think Lindsay Cunningham was also a rock star, but we do have a Lindsay Cunningham in our office. This is Lindsay Henderson, and this will be corrected for the permanent record. Thank you, Lindsay. I'm so sorry and embarrassed all at the same time. So this was said about Lindsay Henderson, although Lindsay Cunningham is also wonderful. Through her continual search to leverage technological innovation in the classroom, she is redefining math success in Utah by moving beyond teaching students to be mere calculators and incorporating tech to building deep and rich conceptual understandings of how mathematics solves real-world problems. And Lindsay is a person that people are really looking to shape the nature of mathematics education in our state, and really proud of Lindsay Henderson. So thank you so much, Lindsay. We're really excited for her. And it was a big deal. These Women Tech Awards are huge. So she won that for educational leadership. Our third shout out is to Debbie Davis. And she probably didn't know I was going to do this, so I don't know that she's in the room. Many of you know that I think Board Member Belknap sent this out to you all, but Debbie was just awarded the Outstanding CPA in Nonprofit and Government. And Debbie has that same reputation that I just described about Lindsay. Anytime I engage with an auditor, somebody in finance at another agency, they all speak to how amazing Debbie is. And so we're really fortunate to have her at the agency and the way that she collaborates and supports all of us to both avoid and mitigate risk. And so this was said about her, that her award was based on superior professional competence, leadership, and meaningful service. And that definitely describes our Debbie Davis. So congratulations to Debbie. Okay, my 3 shout outs. All right, I want to talk a little bit about how we hold ourselves accountable for the strategic plan. And these stock takes are something that when they're on my calendar, I make sure everything else is blocked out. And I know you see Dr. Norman nodding her head. She feels the same way. These are such important meetings that we have with our goal leaders to really understand how our staff is working on the strategies that we are responsible for. So I want to share with you a little bit, going back to our goals, stock take on effective educators and leaders. So a reminder, I've kind of been through this with you before, but just a reminder that with the strategic plan, we have goal leaders. And there's for each of those 4 goals, we have a member of our leadership team who hold the system accountable for the progress, and then they coordinate with everybody on all the strategies. And then we have strategy leaders, and they are kind of the project manager of the strategy, and they coordinate the day-to-day work. And then we have these strategy team members. So if you were to go across the agency, you would find the majority of our employees are at least a strategy team member. So when we monitor our strategic progress, we use heat maps. And it's a great visual for us to kind of see where are we at in terms of making progress towards the goal. Are we not getting anywhere? Are we kind of stagnant? Is it partially implemented? So we look at these heat maps, and we have the team members, the strategy leaders, and the goal leaders work together to determine where they are on the heat map, the quality of planning and performance, and then the capacity that they have to continue to drive progress. We also have some meetings, shared understanding meetings. We just keep adding acronyms to our vernacular. But the shared understanding meeting is where all of the team members in the strategy come together to really understand the progress. That's where they get into that part of the rubric with the heat map that's about the delivery. And then they align their efforts also across the goals. How do they all interact together? So you can see the who is involved in those shared understanding meetings and the responsibility that they have. Tiffany Stanley, our chief of staff, generally serves as the facilitator for these meetings, and she has learned this process with depth and complexity and does such a great job of putting it all together and really keeps it moving. And that's part of her role as chief of staff, is to move the strategic plan forward as like the overall project manager of it. So after that shared understanding meeting, that summary then becomes the stock take, where we sit around as superintendency with the goal leader and go through a protocol that we use all the time. And it's just listening, asking clarifying questions, and then giving feedback, a protocol that you're all likely familiar with. So you can see who's involved and then the responsibility of each person, and we take our roles very seriously. And the main thing with these stock takes is to provide support. Either give guidance, give a little nudge, applaud, cheer on, but that's where the heat map and the conversation really becomes very important. You can see the schedule of the 4 goals, and when we are having these stock take meetings, I think we schedule 90 minutes to 2 hours generally for the stock take, so it's not just a quick drive-by meeting, but one with depth and complexity so that we can really understand what we need to do differently to move the goal forward. So here's an example of the 6 strategies under effective educators and leaders. And now I'll show you in our last stock take this last month what we highlighted. So strategy 2A, going back, you can see that it was about providing effective mentoring for beginning educators and leaders. And our staff has done an amazing job of putting some mentoring toolkits together and helping our LEAs do a better job of mentoring. And you'll see how that plays out in some data in a minute. So we have a pilot project to advance quality mentoring, and 13 of our LEAs are involved in that, both districts and charters. Strategy 2B, we highlighted and talked about the instructional coaching endorsement. 535 educators are involved in that endorsement. And again, this is something where we'll continue to talk about, but we see ourselves as a resource, a convener, bringing research and support together. And then, of course, as a body, you grant endorsements and licenses. Strategy 2C around preparation. And I love this phrase that was mentioned in the stock take. There's a lot of turning over of rocks, rethinking, not just doing what we've always done. And Dr. Thronson has staff who, she herself goes to the dean's meetings, and she has staff who are also at the dean's meetings and really working with our colleges of education to think differently about how we prepare teachers. So we are in a space of influence there. We showed you the Teach with Joy videos. Board member Straight shared some in his message last month, and you have the links to all of those. And that came about in part because of board member Earl asking and thinking about a different way to spend some of our discretionary money to really put forward this Teaching with Joy and thinking about how we highlight the work of educators. We also have just celebrated the Career and Technical Education Pathway and the student group, a student organization of Educators Rising. And to see these young people who want to be teachers and the work that's going on in the schools around this is just incredible, and we definitely want to expand and support that program. Strategy 2E, around equitable access to effective teachers. We've really been tracking that work, and I think Malia was here a minute ago. Malia's there in the back. She can wave. You all know Dr. Height, and she and Kristen Campbell and others have really been working on looking at data and where we have achievement and where we have retention of our teachers, and having people participate in equity labs that we've described to you, and happy to describe those again, to help think about how are we distributing teachers in a way that we don't just have all of our brand new teachers, for example, in a school serving students with a lot of indicators like poverty, et cetera. And then working through the equity lab with our LEAs to figure out, how do you redistribute and support teachers. And then last but not least, school leaders. I just can't emphasize enough how important that strategy is. And we have been creating frameworks that support both new and experienced principals. Yesterday, I had this amazing gift to be in Salem Hills High, and they won a national award that we'll highlight for you later about performing arts. Their principal has been named as the 2021 Secondary Principal of the Year. And I didn't put on my pin. I'll put it on so you can see it later. But the culture there is about really celebrating the one. And I love being in the hallways and just seeing so many artifacts of how students are celebrated in a variety of ways. And this pin that I have that I'll show you has wings and a heart in the middle. And in the heart it says one of us. And kids can earn the wings. They can get their own pin if they attend 7 different activities. So you might go to a football game if you're a choir member. You might go to a band concert, but just trying to have peers support each other in their efforts, a debate, whatever it is. And if you can show you that you've been to 7 things and you support your peers, you get these one of us wings. I love the story of all the football team going to a band concert. That's the kind of culture that a principal can create with expectation. So this leadership strategy, I just can't underscore how important it is, and you all know that. So this is an example of the leadership strategy of how they've used metrics to hold themselves accountable, going through awareness and change, like how do you change your knowledge? How do we measure changing practices and systems, and then in school conditions? So I really appreciate that they're thinking through a variety of ways to collect data around the strategy. And then you can see under the goal, the indicators that we're tracking. So I showed you 6 strategies, and then here are a variety of indicators that we think are very important to look at effective teachers and leaders. And then, we're also trying to highlight some of the things that we're seeing. So one of the things that really popped out at us has been this first-year teacher retention rate. The narrative that we've been hearing is that through COVID and everything else, teachers are going to start bailing out, and it's hard, and we won't get teachers. And maybe some of that is true, but here's what the data is telling us, that when we look at first-year teachers, where the rate is generally the highest, we are retaining about 91.8 in the state. And this is this is above 90% for the first time since before 2012, 2013. And we've seen this steady incline of retaining our first-year teachers, and we credit our LEAs for their efforts around mentoring and induction. In this past year, we also had a high rate of increase. So to that point, my last shout out is to Washington County School District. I've had the great pleasure of visiting some of their schools where they just have all the system in place to support educators. And Dr. Thronson was also able to not only visit but provide professional learning recently. And here are the 3 things that they have a very high retention rate, not only of their first-year teachers, but all of their new teachers. Now, as a native of Washington County, I would say in part it's that beautiful red dirt juxtaposed against the blue sky. But they actually do take a very personalized approach to retaining their teachers. And they focus very much on student learning. That's the basis of everything that they do. They have student-centered coaching, meaning that when they have an instructional coaching model It's about the data and the student, and hyper-focused about how they support each and every student. And I was able to witness some of that when I visited, and it was very data-based and how they integrated conversations and support for the parents. They make sure that the parent is an integral part of student success, and watching and listening to the conversation about the contacts they had made, the meetings they'd had, the shifts in instruction, and teachers helping each other. And then the third point of that personalized system of support is just creating this culture of feedback. And when I step in and out of their schools, they know the state superintendent's there, but they could really care less, which I love. It's like they're just going about their business and engaging in learning communities as if I'm a fly on the wall. That was the most important part to me, that it wasn't a show, it's a way of being. And so just a shout out to Washington County for their great efforts on retaining teachers, not just first year, but all of their teachers. And it's this culture that they are creating. And Board Member Norton probably knows better than any of us, and another employee by the name of Vice Chair Laura Belknap. So just wanted to give you those 4 shout outs and hold us accountable, show you how we hold ourselves accountable with stock takes on your 4 goals that are so important for our system. So that is the end of my report, Chair Huntsman. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Superintendent. Any questions for the superintendent on a report? Seeing none, thank you, and thank you for those shout outs. We'll have to take advantage of this knowledge and when we have the opportunity and share our appreciation.